Good morning, everyone. This is John for MTG Nexus with some more burn content. So today we're going to be trying out something a little bit different. This is a little bit more old school burn. No canopy lands. Technically 3 colors. Although I do like a little bit where this build is going with what it's trying to do with the mana base and such. I think one of the problems in the past with the Wild Nacatl builds, for those of you that aren't familiar, most builds of burn used to include this card until people started building the cleaner mana bases with less damage, etc. Basically, it's a 1/1 that can come down with fetch shock mana base for can come down as a 3/3 on turn 1. Start swinging on turn 2. Gives you yet another 1-drop, pair of Swift Spears and Goblin Guides to pressure your opponent quickly. This is one of the builds that I was interested in trying out as people are trying to work on, leyline SFDs and stuff from the sideboard. The problem with the style of burn and why it's largely phased out is the printing of cards like Fatal Push and such over time have made it a lot harder to connect with a 3/3 without haste. So this card can be a huge liability moving forward after turn 1, especially if you're on the draw, whereas, Swift Spear and Goblin Guide have chances where they can, get in and get a little bit of damage if there's an opening, your opponent's tapped out, they have attack with a creature or whatever. Eidolon, obviously still pretty good, and then the main other attraction to running green is a Tarka's Command, which this card is basically an improved version of Skullcrack. Doesn't have the damage prevention clause, but does have a life gain prevention clause. Does not actually target your opponent, so it can get around leyline a little bit. Also allows you to give +1/+1 to each of your creatures. This is a card that is kind of substituting for Boros Charm in this build. Can deal a ton of damage, especially if you have creatures on board. This card can deal upwards of 5-6 damage if you have multiple creatures in play. And anyways, as far as what I like about this list is the fact that there's no white cards in the main deck. The only white card or card you need to worry about white source is Wild Nacatl, so you're not taking a ton of damage from your mana, at least game 1. You have a bunch of white sideboard cards, which I think is the primary reason to play white out of a build like this. You're not playing Boros Charm or Lightning Helix, so you have all 4 copies of Blaze, 1 copy of Blood. Does make you a little bit vulnerable to the controlling decks a little bit. You're having a lot of dead cards in the deck, but beyond that, I do like the cleaner mana base, the no white sources, or no white spells in the main deck. As a friendly reminder, before we cover the sideboard, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider subscribing, give us a thumbs up, leave a constructive comment down below, as we aim to become the most informative lightning bolt-based modern channel on YouTube. Anyways, white sideboard cards, Path to Exile, kind of key. 3 Rest in Peace might be a little bit much in the current meta, but still pretty solid. 2 Stony Silence, this card helps against the Emery decks and such, the Paradoxical Outcome decks. It helps, doesn't completely solve the problem, but it definitely helps. Though those are already reasonable matches, does help against things like Hardened Scales, Tron, etc. Destructive Rev, yet another reason to be running green. A little bit hard to justify running a green splash for D-Rev in the Boros builds, just because that list is so clean, dealing yourself so much damage, especially when you're running the Canopy lands. So while running this particular setup doesn't feel terrible, and then 3 copies of Dragon's Claw, probably one too many. Just taking a look to see how this list performs. If I were to work on this list moving forward, I'd probably be tweaking some of the sideboard slots, maybe, one of the main deck slots or 2. But this was one of the last well-performing Wild Nacatl lists on Magic Online, but that was from about 3 weeks ago, so this list isn't probably up to date with the current meta, but still is a pretty good solid jumping off point if you were interested in working on Wild Nacatl Burn. But I once again would not recommend Wild Nacatl Burn, but for those of you that are interested in see how it will perform, we're going to be running it through a league. So here we go. I'm going to play for match number 1, which always is a good place to be for Burn. Good place to be, but dangerous hand. So, obviously you never want to keep a 4-lander. I think simply because this hand has access to Nacatl and Swift Spear, I'm going to keep, but once again, I would normally not recommend keeping this hand, but I'm curious to see, the 1-2 punch of these creatures to see how this will do. So, we're up against an interactive deck, this hand's going to get real bad real quick. But, like I said, normally I would not keep this hand, but I'm interested. Specifically because we have this turn 1, turn 2 play lined up. You know, that's 3, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage on turn 2 without interaction from our opponent. Once again, wouldn't recommend keeping this hand because it has 4 lands, but this is definitely among the more powerful, you know, combination of hands that Burn can have. One of the downsides to this particular build is the extreme amount of damage you take from your mana base. You know, you usually have to fetch shock or just shock in twice, so your starting life total often is 15 or so in this deck, and without Lightning Helix in the build specifically, Eidolon, that's an interesting one. So I could do this combination, or I could just run out Eidolon. I think I'm going to run out Eidolon. Like, this is blue-white. I just want to deal them as much damage as possible. Curious to see what our opponent does here. Really gonna try to go for the... Wow. Trying to hit a Terminus, huh? Alright. So Space Marine will be happy to know there are Miracles builds out there. Do the Path to Exile. Alright. Put them to 4. This is one of the dangers of keeping the hand with caps, so they could easily have like a Snapcaster or another Path here. Still trying to hit a Terminus. Okay, he did. They are, in fact, dead on turn 4. Alright. So their Jeskai looks like Miracles build. So this so this build is extremely poor against a Jeskai build. There's like literally no cards on the sideboard that I'm even remotely interested in. Like, I suppose I could bring in a couple D-Revs as a hedge against Leyline, but those 5 cards in our deck are so terrible right now. The five Blaze cards. I think we literally, like, do something like this. Just as a hedge against Leyline. Definitely not going to keep this hand. This is a 4-lander without the upside of a huge chunk of damage. I think I can afford to put back... I think let's just put back Foundry. It's like we don't have any white cards in our deck, and we don't have a Nacatl in our opening hand, so... Running this Eidolon into a possible counterspell. Yep, Spell Snare. Unfortunate. Not too much you can do to play around that these days, unfortunately. That's a card that's picked up in popularity because of other things going... Thrill of Possibility. Okay, I have no idea what's going on with this deck now. I thought that they were just some type of... Miracles deck? No, I honestly have no idea. Wouldn't be surprised if we get Helixed here. Why? What on earth are you casting right now? Just missed an opportunity for damage there. Alright. Well, it should be at 12. Another Archmage's Charm, yay. Alright, so some really radical take on Jeskai Miracles. You have a mana leak or something here? Oh, that's adorable. By adorable, I mean we're completely screwed because our opponent's about to miracle a 3-point Entreat the Angels. I don't think there's one card in our deck that actually gets us out of this situation. So, especially without Boros Charm being in the mix. go ahead and concede, because Wild Nacatl is just not good enough here in this spot. Alright, so it's possible the literal only yeah, like what do I even bring in here? Deflecting Ball, maybe? This hand's good, not great. Electrolyze, sure. It's gonna go to combat. Go to command. See if our opponent fetches or if they. Sure. Once again, only one white card in our deck, so. Hopefully our opponent doesn't play Lightning Helix. Wow, that's some awkward mana. Go ahead. Yep. This isn't the best particular card here, but forces them to react to it. Alright, put you to 2, and pass. Alright, and got there against a rather unique take of Jeskai Miracles. Back here for match number 2 on the draw. Unfortunately, this hand's still pretty solid. Alright, some type of Once Upon a Time deck. Thought Not Seer. Great, Eldrazi. Just the deck archetype you want to see. Hopefully they don't have... Okay, cool. Eldrazi Sky Spawner. Sure. guess. Sure. This is where the downside of our land base dealing us so much damage comes from. Opponent's gonna have Thought Not Seer regardless this turn. So looks like this might be the emerge version of Eldrazi. Probably lose our Tarka's command here. Would be my guess. Wow. Alright, sure. Eidolon looking pretty terrible here. So that goes to a 2, goes to a 3. Attack with Nacatl here. Okay. Did you not realize that was going to happen, friend? So, Reality Smasher? Of course. And we're dead. Alright. So some type of once upon a time reality smasher nonsense. These are all perfectly fine cards in this matchup. So what are the odds there is a finish with this deck? Blue-green, maybe that's what I'm looking for. Okay. This is really an interesting pile of cards. Nope, not the same player, but likely a similar deck archetype. So there's Engineered Explosives in this list, but no Chalice, because they are a Noble Hierarch deck. They've got some life gain crap. Searing Blood has relevant targets because of Sky Spawner, Matter Reshaper, and Noble Hierarch, but I still think I want to remove the Searing Blood. They are in fact an Elder Deep Fiend deck. Other cards. Eidolon's not great, so maybe we'll remove a couple of those on the draw. No. Leave some of those in. Try like this. This hand isn't amazing, but it's fine. One of the downs, this is the style of matchup that Nacatl can get a disadvantage. Always lead on Nacatl because it obviously doesn't have haste. Once Upon a Time gives them a deeper look at so feed the clans. Yep, Once Upon a Time, probably looking for an Eldrazi temple. Yep, and they found one. Oh, okay, so Noble Hierarch. Nation Stirrings. Sure. Hopefully we get a fetch land this turn. Sweet. Grab a Sacred Foundry. This is the upside of this style of list, is the damage output in the early turns can be pretty insane. Okay. So 4, 7, 10, I can put you to 1. I think I'm inclined to do that here. Need to produce 2 blockers here, which a deck can certainly do. Okay. Into thought not seer ain't gonna do it. Sky Spawner unfortunately does. That, however, is lethal, so GG. Alright, so interested in taking out another Eidolon on the draw. I'd rather have Searing Blood in than the 4th Eidolon. Go with that. Just really want the 1-drops and the ability to clear out 4 of those 1-drops. Hope they mulligan here, one of these hands. This hand's pretty decent. They're mulliganing to 6 at least. Mulliganing to 5. Can still do a lot of damage on 5 cards, even from a maybe we'll get lucky and this is, yep. So, as much as I don't like wasting my time, I really don't want them. Yeah, because we could have got Thought Not Seared on turn 2, which would not have been the very best, obviously. So I'm going to play it a little bit slow this turn and just play Goblin Guide. Hold up Path to Exile. That way if they have a TKS we can kill it. Matter of Shaper is kind of eh. It's unfortunate. Giving them the extra land they need feels bad, man. Especially if they have the TKS. They do have a Once Upon a Time. Yep, here comes Thought-Knot Seer. Probably have to take a Tarkus command. I'm presuming they'll learn their lesson here. Trigger, Matter Shaper. No matter how you block, this thing is dead this turn. Keep that land in hand in case we draw a Blaze next turn. Wow, that's kind of ballsy. Please don't have another TKS. Alright, so... it's a land in play, unfortunately. So now we have a little bit of a stalemate on our hands. They feel they're finally free to get around to attacking. Deflecting Palm might very well get them. No, they might have Stubborn Denial now, so not necessarily a guarantee. Sure. Do you have the Stubborn Denial? Unfortunate. Do you have a second one? If you do, then we're dead. Alright, whew! Got there against Blue-Green Eldrazi on the match number 3. Here we are for match number 3. Unfortunately on the draw, but I still think this hand's a keep. No reason not to fetch Stomping Ground here. Our opponent has a path or something, that's fine-ish. Stirring Blood obviously is pretty bad in this style of matchup. Opponent sees a peak. The question is, do you have a path? Looks like the answer is yes. Which is unfortunate because our hand, well, not particularly reliant on it, is a lot better with a creature. Going to play around Spell Snare here. They have Path, they have Path. I mean, not really much we can do about that. Down to 8. Going to 7. Okay. How cute. You gave us a target for Searing Blood. Way too many lands, unfortunately. Did that specifically to have them take damage. Now they have to have a Jace or something here. And they concede the game. Archmage's Charm, such a cute little card. I mean, it's actually very annoying for us in this matchup, you know? Once again, still not a whole lot to bring in. A Rev for Blaze. I mean, this does put this in the awkward spot. This can be a dead card, and this can also be a dead card, so, you know, nothing's perfect here. This hand has the potential to be very, very good. Sanctuary. Okay. Spell Snare this turn if that's the card they're relying on. Oops, they have Archmage's Charm, potentially. Trying to hit a miracle. No, they have the Mystic Sanctuary, so then they have at least one land to play. Okay, timely. Yep. I'm not sure what they had to think about on that one. So you get the Mystic Sanctuary back timely. This is going to be an uphill fight. Alright, or they can Miracle Terminus, sure. Yep, seems like they have it all this game, right? Yeah, even if we bolt ourselves here, they just gain too much life. Alright, on game number 3. It's possible, like, I bolt myself, I get a 12, they fetch, go to 11. Opponent seems to be very well aware of the ways that Burn can play around certain things here. So, once again, taking a risk, but it seems seems unlikely with copies of Timely Reinforcements that they're also running Leyline, so this is one of the awkward types of hands. Unfortunately, it's a mulligan because it's a one-lander. Not saying all one-landers are mulligans, but put back a Blaze here. This hand obviously isn't great, but to try for Opt into Terminus. If you have Timely here, we're obviously in trouble, but I don't think I can play around Timely. Yeah, it looks like they have Timely here. Yeah, this combination is just absurd for us to try to beat. You know, pretty much dead here, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Yep, just let this trade happen. Yeah, again, just let it happen. Could easily have Spell Snare here. I'm not particularly playing around Spell Snare, it's just more another Timely Reinforcements, because we definitely ain't beating that card. Yep, now the flood out begins. Feels like they're sitting on Archmage's Charm. That's one reason they'd be attacking with this. Or likely one of the reasons, I should say. just kind of do the thing here. How many Mystic Sanctuaries are they typically running? Not sure why they're not putting that back on top of their deck. I guess because I have the fetch land in play. Alright, sure. Mystic Sanctuary doesn't particularly net you much. Really gonna fetch? You are not. So missed opportunity on our opponent's part. Good job. Can't gain life. Hopefully you don't have a force of will here, or force of negation. If you do, we're dead. Please, 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 no! Woo! Alright, on to 3-0. Back for match number 4. This is certainly a hand. See how it goes. Like the worst possible hand to have a wild Nacatl. Okay, maybe not. Really? Oh, 04 wall. Seems good. We pass, let our opponent do their thing this turn. Yeah, just missed an opportunity to Tarka's command that, so I think we're gonna move on. Yeah, fun game while it lasted. So, definitely want these. Might want these. Deflecting Palm could potentially be good. Question is, what cards would we cut? So Eidolon on the play is pretty decent. Nacatl on the play is going to be at its best, but I think this might be a Nacatl out matchup. Just simply because they have a lot of chump blockers with amalgams and millers and such. And then next cut's just lava spikes. Just cutting some random cards pretty much. Turn 2, rest in peace. Yeah, it's definitely the card I'm signing up for here. Looks like they're keeping their 5. Stitcher's Supplier, sure. Creeping Chill, mildly annoying. I guess it's possible I should actually play Rest in Peace main phase here to avoid getting hit by another Creeping Chill, but other than that, I think I just play Rest in Peace post-combat. This is the annoying part about the Dredge-esque decks for Burn, is it's just like, it doesn't really matter what tools you have, they can still punk you out. Like, we played this matchup with Boros last time out and got absolutely wrecked. So, taking way too much time to consider their decisions in life. It's like you block, hopefully you don't hit a Creeping Chill, you get Rest in Peace, we move on with our lives. And then you deploy your knuckleheads and try to race. One of the disadvantages of playing in a Tarka's command build with no Lightning Helixes, really no way to recover life, but the white cards are too good to pass up on. So, see if our gamble pays off. If it doesn't, sure, we're not timing out ourselves. Alright, so Stitch. fire. Sultai Vengvine, sure. Looks like Morpho's Secret Keeper is a card they're running. Up against Waldy. Anyways, I'll continue the recording once they come back. Hey, our opponent came back. Yay. Don't hit a Creeping Chill. Don't hit a Creeping Chill. Going to 11, yay. Say goodbye, graveyard. Sure. Putting up a bunch of chump blockers. Wow, that's a lot of damage. No sense really in attacking this turn. Looks like they're going to go on the mill plan here. Going to 10. Searing Blaze. Kill your dude. Well, at least they can't cast, wow. Okay, what kind of chump blocker do you have here? I'm just gonna hard cast Creeping Chill, sure. Okay. Sure. Sweeping Chill's a dangerous card. So that will put me to... one. Pass the turn. Put you to 0. Alright, on to game number 3. So, Brutality, Ley Lines. Okay. Probably board out a couple Eidolons on the draw. Bring in a couple more spells. Like, the problem with Eidolon specifically against them is D's to D's plus on the play, really bad on the draw. Sand seems reasonable. It's mulliganing to 5. Seems like they're keeping their hand. Hit a Narcomoeba, which could be mildly annoying. Could easily get a Vengvine back. Let's take the damage this turn. I at least have the option of not taking extra damage next turn. Alright. So it looks like if they have a second land, we're in a whole lot of trouble. Of course they do. Force of negation? Really? One-off copy of Eidolon truly is terrible here. Rest in peace, just being too slow on the draw. we have to make this trade. And have another Gravecrawler, sure. So do this. Take an extra point of damage. Do this. Still staring down the barrel of 2 power return. If they have any kind of follow-up, we're in some trouble. And Nargamoeba, sure. Gotta do this, or just add on board. What way to die. Yeah, with no helixes in our deck, we're literally drawing dead. Doesn't matter what we draw next turn. Alright, on to the 5th and final match. Here for the 5th and final match in the set. Unfortunately, we're on the draw, but I think this hand is pretty reasonable. Put him mulligans to 5. Seems to be a lot of mulliganing here. Of course, that said, we did just lose to a mull to 5 on the draw, so, you know. There's 2 cards on the bottom of their library. Hopefully this is, of course it's Infect. Eidolon, go. Gladly accept this trade. Another Eidolon, suspend the Riftbolt, pass turn. Sure. Wow. Alright. Lose out of nowhere. Kind of mildly annoying. But that's the Infect game. Reflecting Palm. Path to Exile. Revelry could potentially come in here. Start by cutting the lava spikes. Alright, so let's see how many actual cards that Infect runs that would care about. these decks are running like a Bogles package out of the sideboard. Interesting. Do I want to bring in D-Rev is the question. Like over a Rift Bolt and that, bring in a couple D-Revs. Just have a little bit more interaction here in the main deck. This hand's okay. Not like perfect in the matchup. Like, you really probably want another piece of interaction in addition to these creatures. Especially if they're keeping a 6-card hand. Kill your first dude. Again for some damage. This is where multiple Nacatls might shine. Sure. Land would be nice here. Force our opponent to take an inordinate amount of damage. Opponent concedes. Alright. So, one of the few spots where a really creature-heavy draw bails us out. The Nacatls on the draw get a little bit worse. But also chump blockers against Glistener Elf is fine. Like, these are the only two cards I'd consider bringing in for the Nacatls, and I don't even think they're that particularly good, so... This hand isn't great. So, I think we keep this hand, but this hand, like, obviously has a lot of interaction, no real pressure. Yeah. Path is not the ideal interaction in this deck, or against this deck specifically, because their deck can actually leverage extra mana quite well. What is their actual kill creature? Is it a blighted agent? like they were hoping to draw a land there. Just kill it with fire. Don't let them untap with creatures. So 3, so 4, 3, 7, 3, 7, 10. Yeah, if they don't block, they're just dead. Seems like a pretty good. That might actually incentivize them not to block. So, opponents. Merry Christmas. Gotcha out of nowhere. Alright. Be back in one sec with a wrap-up. So we're back here quick with a wrap-up with Wild Nacatl Burn. I think in this particular league you saw a lot of what is positive about Nacatl Burn, what is negative about Nacatl Burn. The one thing with Nacatl Burn is the less blockers you're up against, the less aggression you're up against, the better it is. You know, we had a lot of interactive matchups with the 2 control decks, but Nacatl still shined, I think, in those matchups. I think the card that really annoyed us was Timely Reinforcements out of the blue-white control deck, which we were able to beat, and then losing to the Dredgevine decks. I think part of that was the extra damage we have to take from our lands. Part of it was it's actually the second time I've lost to that particular variant. So rest in peace once again. Too slow against even the remnants of Hogak Vine, even after the bannings. So I think with a little bit of tuning the sideboard, this deck could be worth taking a closer look at. I think there's a lot of actually powerful things going on here, and there are points in time where Wild Nacatl is a very good card, and we hit some good matchups there. Got the 4-1, always feels nice, but pretty solid. You got to see, you know, the extreme lengths with this deck, why people went out of their way to play this card in the past. This card was actually banned in Modern, go figure. Atarka's Command, obviously, when you're playing a larger creature set, is absurdly powerful, but you do give up a lot. You give up the access to the Horizon lands, you give up access to, you don't give up access to like Boros Charm or Lightning Helix if you really want to play it, but I do think this setup without Boros Charm and Lightning Helix in the main deck is correct, and then the white sideboard cards, I think, go a long way towards helping things in the meta. I think could probably shave a Dragon's Claw and potentially a D-Rev and get some other cards in here maybe for a controlling matchup, like Firecraft or Skullcracks or something, maybe even another Path to Exile. So a lot of things you could do potentially with this sideboard to kind of clean it up in the current meta, but I do think 2 Stony Silence might be reasonable in the current meta, especially with the Emery decks running around. Deflecting Palm is a one of I'm fine, take it or leave it, and pretty much I think my main thing is with the sideboard. I think the main deck, other than maybe the one of Stirring Blood, is pretty solid, at least for a Nacatl build. I like the idea of not running any white cards in the main deck, and your only card you need to fetch the white sources for is Nacatl. So I think I like this deck pretty clean overall, for Nacatl build at least. Anyways, as always, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider subscribing, give us a thumbs up, leave a constructive comment down below, and I will see you in the next video.